Nestabilities label dies are some of the most beautiful dies on the market, and they accent the focal image of any card with style. But because they don't come in both large and small sets, layering and getting just a small border around the perimeter can be a challenge. So today on Stamp TV, I'm going to show you one way that I like to use to create perfect layers for the labels dies. Let me show you the tools and products you're going to need. First, you're going to need a labels die. You're going to need a focal image, and I've used one of the focal images from the Stamp TV Enjoy the Sunshine kit, and I've just colored it in with some Copic markers. You're also going to need some sharp scissors, and I'm using my Cutter Bee scissors. You're going to need some sort of die cutting machine, and then I like to accent and highlight the inside of the image, inside the die, so I'm going to use a little bit of Distress ink in tumbled glass and an applicator. So to begin, you would first stamp your image and then color it in and get it all ready to be die cut. Now the next step is to cut this out using a die cutting machine. In this case, I'm going to use my Cuttlebug. Now that I have my image perfectly centered inside the center of the die, which is one of the things that I love about Spellbinder's dies, is that you can see right inside, I'm going to cut the image out first, and then after I'm done cutting it, I'm going to emboss it. Okay. So now I'm going to flip it over, put down my rubber mat, and use my B-plate and a piece of chipboard to shim it just a little bit. And for full instructions on how I cut Spellbinder's dies using my Cuttlebug, you can watch the Stamp TV video on that. So now, this image is cut and embossed, and my next step is to highlight. Using some of the Tim Holtz tumbled glass distress ink and a foam applicator, I'm going to highlight just around the inside, just inside that die cut area, using a circular motion like this. And I decided to use a turquoise because that kind of lends itself to the feeling of a sky or just an open, airy environment. I didn't want it to look too distressed or too shabby. Now this is doing two things for me. The first thing that it's doing is it's creating some contrast on my focal image piece, and it's also going to accentuate the perimeter of where this image is embossed. And I'll show you what I mean. Let me pop that out. Now this is one great way to create a layered look. You can see just by highlighting inside, now it appears as though my cardstock here on the inside is a bluish color and my perimeter is white, so it looks like it might be layered on white. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Cutter Bee scissors, and now that I have a very well-defined line, I'm just going to carefully trim just around the outside. Now, what makes this very easy, and it makes it a lot easier to do with Spellbinder's dies, is because you've embossed it, you've actually raised the inside of that up, which gives a little groove for your scissors to fit in there just perfectly and makes it very simple to trim. Okay. Now that that piece is cut out, I'm just going to touch the edges of this, again, using a little bit of the distress ink, just to finish off the perimeter a little bit. And that'll also make your cutting just appear a little bit more smooth. My final step is to take that same exact labels die and trim another layer, and in this case I used black that's going to be behind my focal image. Now because I removed that little bit of a border, look how perfectly this layers together. And with that little bit of sponging around the perimeter, it just looks perfect. So using a little bit of my Glue Glider Pro, I'm just going to attach that together. And now you have a perfectly layered Nestabilities labels die cutout. Creating a layered look can also be done by running a marker around the perimeter of the cut label or by highlighting inside the open area of the die with ink prior to removing the die cut piece. Try all three ways to create beautiful layered looks with Nestabilities labels dies.